Glad to have you all back for episode 10 of the Sketchup series. In this episode, we'll be creating this TV unit with a dressing table in Sketchup. Import the AutoCAD 2D elevation into Sketchup and use it as a reference to draw directly over it for greater ease and convenience. First, draw the rectangle above the plan. Raise it by 6 inches to give it the required thickness. Move the 2D plot slightly away from the model so it is easier to select. Then, right-click on it and create a group for easier editing and management. Now, let's place the plot on our base and begin the rest of the work. Now, rotate the entire model to a comfortable working angle, and let's begin building the rest of the design. We'll now take one part of the object at a time, fill it in, and group it individually for easier editing later. Once you've drawn the outlines for each object, select each section and group it separately to keep the model organized and easier to edit. Since these lines represent the louver panels, copy them one by one to create the pattern. Then, repeat the same process for the remaining sections. Use the push-pull tool to pull the paneling outward by 3 inches. Now, let's give the paneling its final shape and make it look more realistic. Leave one panel in between and push the alternate panels back by 0.5 inches to create a more realistic louvered effect. Same for the other side. To create the storage, first fill the outline section and give it the required thickness. Then, draw lines for the shelves and use the push-pull tool to give each shelf its thickness. For the glass door, first use the rectangle tool to cover the entire opening. Then, use the offset tool to create the frame thickness. Finally, use the push-pull tool to push the inner portion slightly backward for a realistic recessed glass look. Now, start shaping the dressing unit by drawing the required outlines and using the push-pull tool or offset tool to give each section its depth and final form. Make sure you group the parts of the object accordingly. Same for the down part of the dressing unit. For the dressing table storage, draw a rectangle over the outline section, give it the required thickness, and then use the push-pull tool to extend it to a depth of 14 inches. Now, copy the bottom lines and move them 2 inches above the ground to create the skirting base. Now, use the offset tool to create the outlines for the storage shutters and their base, giving them a clean and realistic appearance. Now, draw the required outlines for the upper section of the dressing unit and use the push-pull tool to give it depth, bringing it into its final shape. Same for the TV unit's part. Use the offset tool to create the border, draw the line for the profile border, and then use the Follow Me tool to apply the profile around the entire edge. Then, draw the border. Now, draw the required outlines for almost all the remaining sections of the model so they're ready for the next steps. As you shape each outline section using the push-pull tool, pull every part outward by 1 inch to maintain a consistent depth. Now, use the offset tool to create a border around the design. Now, open the 3D warehouse, download a wall light of your choice, and place it in the desired position. Since the dressing storage door is made of glass, open the Paint Bucket tool, go to the Glass category in Materials, and apply a glass material to the door. Since the back panel is plain, the glass won't look realistic, so create a back panel using the Offset tool, just as we did for the front, and apply the same glass material to it. Finally, use the color wheel to adjust the glass tint to achieve the desired look. For the dressing mirror lighting, apply a soft warm yellow color to the desired area. To make it glow instead of appearing as plain color, open the Inkscape Material Editor, use the Material Picker wand to select that material, then change its type from generic to self-illuminated. This will give it a realistic lighting effect in the render. Then, apply a glass material to the upper and lower sections to complete the dressing mirror finish. For the TV, open 3D Warehouse and download any TV model. If you want a 55-inch TV, first measure the downloaded model, then check the actual dimensions of a 55-inch TV on Google. Resize the model accordingly so it matches the real-life measurements. Then, use the scale tool to resize the TV so it matches the actual dimensions of a 55-inch TV. And once it's accurate, place it in its designated position on the model. Measure 37 inches from the floor, then place the TV so its bottom edge starts at that height. First, measure the reference plot and recreate it using the line tool. We're taking the plot width as 12 feet. But since we'll be adding walls on all 4 sides, make it 13 feet wide instead. Then, use the Offset tool to offset the plot by 6 inches from all sides to create the walls. Now, create the door opening by drawing a line and then copying it 3 feet away, according to the required door width. For the window, find the midpoint of the selected wall. Since we're creating a 6-foot window, copy the midpoint line 3 feet to both sides, then delete the original midpoint line to create the opening. Finally, place the TV unit on the wall where it is intended to be installed. If you need to extend the wall slightly to suit your design, feel free to adjust it accordingly. Now, start raising the remaining walls using the Push-Pull tool until they reach the required height. Since our room width is 12 feet, extend the pillars, ceiling, and all related elements using the Push-Pull tool until they reach the full 12 feet width. This is easy to do because each part was grouped individually. So, remember to keep grouping your components as you model. Also, raise the walls by an additional 6 inches, as they'll need to extend up to support the ceiling. Now, use the Rectangle tool, group it, and then create a complete surface for the ceiling. Now, create the door by giving it a height of 7 feet using the push. Now, create the window as well by raising the wall sections around the window opening to the required height. Now, let's open it in Inkscape and see how the model looks with the work we've completed so far. You can also hide the walls temporarily to make it easier to work on the interior. Now it's time to add colors to the model. Go to Google or Pinterest and search for a cream color texture. Browse a few options and download the ones you like to your computer so you can use them in the model later. Search for a louver texture and download a few options that match your design to use in the model later. Now, return to your Sketchup model, unhide all the walls, and start applying the downloaded materials to the required surfaces one by one. Now that we've downloaded the tile texture, Open the Paint Bucket tool, go to Color Wheel, and import the downloaded texture from your gallery. If needed, adjust the texture size to get the correct tile scale, then apply it to the required area of the model. Now, repeat the same process for the louver texture. Import the downloaded texture through Color Wheel, adjust its scale if required, and apply it to all the louver panels for a realistic finish. You can always go back and readjust the texture size later if needed. Repeat the same process for the wall color. You can always fine-tune the texture size later to achieve the desired look. Feel free to try different texture or color options and switch between them until you find the one that best suits your design. Apply the same process to all the remaining surfaces wherever materials or colors are required throughout the model. For the ceiling, use the same wall material but adjust it to a lighter shade using the color wheel, then apply it to the ceiling. For the window pelmet, use a slightly darker tone to create contrast and enhance the overall design. Now go to 3D Warehouse, download a room door of your choice, and place it in the doorway. Adjust its size, scale, and position as needed so it fits the opening perfectly. You can use the scale and flip tools to resize and orient the door correctly, ensuring it fits the opening and opens in the desired direction. Now, repeat the same process for the window. Download a suitable window from 3D Warehouse, then use the scale and flip tools, if needed, to adjust its size and orientation before placing it in the window opening. Now, review the overall design and make any final color adjustments wherever needed. Fine-tune the shades, tones, or textures until the model looks balanced and visually appealing. Now, add a lighting effect to the wall lights. The complete process of creating the light effect using the Inkscape Material Editor is explained later in this video, so you can follow those same steps here. You can also add spotlights in Inkscape to highlight the feature wall and create a more natural, realistic lighting effect in the final render. Now, add the required lights from Inkscape according to your design. Place line, cone, or any other lights wherever needed to achieve a balanced and realistic lighting effect. Once you're done placing all the lights, unhide the previously hidden wall to restore the complete model. Once you've placed all the lights and rendered the scene in Inkscape, you'll get a final output like this, with realistic lighting, materials, and an overall polished look. You can also adjust the exposure settings in Inkscape to achieve the desired brightness and overall render effect according to your preference. If you enable synchronized views in Inkscape, the render window will display the exact view you're currently looking at in Sketchup, but if you click Synchronize Views again to turn it off, Inkscape will no longer stay locked to your Sketchup camera, allowing you to freely navigate and view the entire rendered scene instead of just that specific viewpoint. To give the shelf glass a more realistic appearance, open the Inkscape Material Editor, select the glass material using the Sample Paint tool from the Paint Bucket, and change its material type to glass for a more realistic look. Adjust the exposure if needed, and move the view forward or backward to control the zoom level while navigating the model. You can also use the mouse scroll wheel to zoom in and out while navigating the view. Now, click on the screenshot tool available in the Inkscape render window to capture your rendered view. You can then save the image to any folder on your computer and rename the file if needed before saving. Thanks for watching. Hope this video was useful enough. See you in the next episode.